Do not buy Patrick Mahomes cards. Perhaps buy Drake May instead. Look, I know it was a picture-perfect ending to the Super Bowl. Mahomes got his third ring. He looked amazing. The entire thing was legendary. But that's the exact reason why you should not buy Patrick Mahomes cards right now. I love Patrick Mahomes as a long-term investment, but buying now, in my opinion, is a massive mistake. There's other places you should be putting your money in the football card market. Do the opposite of what everybody else out there is about to do. And today I'm bringing on sports card dad Dustin onto the show, and we're going to break down where your money should be going in the football card market. And it's not Patrick Mahomes.
Feeling good, getting better. Feeling good, I can't let it go. I'm feeling good, 'cause I never say never.
Dustin, welcome back to the Geoff Wilson Show.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be back.
I am thrilled to have you back, and we got a big topic to talk about today because obviously we just had the Super Bowl. We just saw the absolute incredible greatness of Patrick Mahomes, but I don't think this is the right time to be buying Patrick Mahomes cards. I'm telling the audience, Dustin, stop. Do not buy. And you did a video on your own channel on Sports Card Dad a few days ago where you kind of talked about the impact that Super Bowl win could not just have on Patrick Mahomes, but could also then have on other quarterbacks like Joe Burrow and Josh Allen you mentioned. And then you even talked a little bit about Tom Brady and maybe some of the impact it would have on his card prices. Give me your theory right now, coming off of this Super Bowl. Where do you think the football card market goes with these types of quarterbacks here over the next couple of months?
Over the next couple of months will be really interesting. But you spoke to Mahomes. My concern, I don't know if I would call it a concern, but I guess it's just a wonder if, folks that had been putting a lot of money into the Burrows and the Josh Allens and the Justin Herberts of the world, Mahomes is now pulled away from these guys to where, he had 2 rings. And if Burrow could get one, if, Allen could get one, it would be 2-1. And I know a lot of quarterback plays, a lot of them are, the focus is around Super Bowl wins. Of course, you've got individual stats and that sort of thing, but people care about titles for NFL quarterbacks. It's why Tom Brady's the GOAT to Montana and those folks. So, but I'm very curious to see if people now decide, okay, Mahomes is the guy. We're going to consolidate into Mahomes. I'm moving out of my Burrow and I'm getting into Mahomes. Or if they just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to sit pat and I'm just going to kind of wait and see. And and kind of to what you had said, how much of it's baked in with Mahomes? If we go back in time, you and I were around in 2019 when PSA 10 Prism Silver Mahomes, I remember it being $400 all day. I could have picked up a bunch of them on eBay. I got a few 9s at, $130 or $140, but the point is the 10s still sit at $4,000. The 10s are 10x what they were, 4 or 5 years ago. So you do have to kind of wonder, how much upside is there, or will that kind of consolidation from QBs go into Mahomes to where the prices do move up just because he's now become, the Jordan or the LeBron of current players? It'll be interesting.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. So Mahomes has 3 rings, 2 back-to-back. He had 1 previous. So He's definitely in rarefied air right now, with the ability potentially to get obviously a lot more, still a young player. But here's the thing that I see, right? And this is not going to be something that everybody out there in the audience is going to agree with. But what I see is there is going to be the reaction that you described. There will be people saying, I'm never going to buy a Josh Allen card or a Joe Burrow card again because I should just be putting all of my money into Mahomes because he's clearly the GOAT. That reaction is going to occur. You are going to see people, I think, right now you're going to see people chasing Mahomes cards and just saying this guy is the legend. And look, Mahomes, long term, this guy's already established himself as a legend. So I have zero problem with that long term. But people in the sports card market, it is so much reaction to hype. And most of the time when you react to something crazy happening, most of the time you end up on the wrong side of that. That was buying Ohtani cards back in over the summer when his prices were at all-time highs and he was doing absolutely historical things on the diamond. That would be, buying Tom Brady cards right after he won his last Super Bowl, for example. And buying Mahomes cards now, this week, this month, next month, I think is reacting to something that we saw incredible on the field. I love Mahomes long term, but I think your opportunity for Mahomes really is after he doesn't win it, after he gets bounced from the playoffs. That will happen. Could he win again next year? Sure. But could he get bumped next year by Burrow or by Allen? Or could he lose the Super Bowl matchup, a rematch to San Francisco, or lose to Detroit, or lose to Philly? Maybe they resurge next year. Yes, all those things could happen as well. The Chiefs will go into next season, I'm sure, as the Super Bowl favorites, but still, even with that said, going into next season, if there was a bet to be placed on the Chiefs versus the field, versus every other team, Vegas is going to favor every other team as a collective over the Chiefs. Vegas will tell you that there's a much better chance that the Chiefs won't win than the Chiefs will win again next season. And so with that said, your opportunity, in my opinion, on Mahomes cards is not today. Your opportunity is after whatever happens then next season or the season after, provided he doesn't win. Look at LeBron, right? You brought up the reference to LeBron, and I think that's a really good reference. I think LeBron obviously has gone on. Obviously, he's much later in his career now, but he's gone on and had these storybook moments and had the incredible win in the bubble as well, right? Where he won the title with the Lakers, something that nobody thought he could possibly do. And when he won that title with the Lakers, there was this kind of mindset of like, he's unquestionably, 1 and 2 there with Jordan. Like, him and Jordan are so far above everybody else. He's just won a title now with his third team. He had won with the Cavs. He had won with the Heat. Now he's won with the Lakers. And he's so far above everybody else currently playing. Yet LeBron's cards from that moment in time are down something like, 75% or something of that nature. I mean, they're down a huge number. Brady's cards, since he won his last Super Bowl, are down something like, 75% as well, 50 to 75%. Now, granted, the sports card market moved down those years as well. So there was this accelerating force. There was an accelerating downward pressure on those cards. But the fact that so many people were buying those cards right around the time those historical achievements occurred, and they were just like, oh my God, this guy's the greatest ever. He clearly the greatest ever. I've got to buy his cards today because of something amazing he just did. And in reality, it's amazing to have LeBron cards and it's amazing to have Brady cards long term, but the moment to buy him wasn't then. The moment to buy him is today, when the Lakers aren't really contending and, Brady's now, off in retirement. Like, these are the moments, in my opinion, to buy Brady and LeBron cards. Just like today is not the moment to buy Mahomes cards. That moment may come 2 years from now. If they get bounced from the playoffs 2 consecutive years and one of these other young quarterbacks like a Burrow is on the rise or an Allen's on the rise, maybe Buffalo makes the next 2 Super Bowls. Buy Mahomes cards then. Don't buy Josh Allen cards then. Buy Mahomes cards then. Like, that's kind of how you have to play the game and the hype cycle in the sports card world a little bit. But that's counterintuitive for a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there that are going to be saying, probably in the comments, like, Geoff, you are nuts to recommend people don't buy Mahomes right now. And I'm not saying don't buy Mahomes ever. I'm just saying don't buy Mahomes today.
Yeah, absolutely. I almost think too, for his story arc, if you look to there's been a lot of comparisons to like the '90s Bulls and the domination and the dynasty. And there's also been, I've heard, comparison to the '90s Cowboys. Like, this was Troy Aikman going back, 30 years ago, and no one cares about Troy Aikman. I shouldn't say nobody, but he doesn't have a card market like a Mahomes or a Brady. But, I almost hope for Mahomes' story arc that he does have, kind of like what you mentioned. He's got a few years where he faces some adversity. They have injuries, they don't make it. Tom Brady had 3 rings at the same age or around the same age as Mahomes now. And then what was it, 6, 7, 8, 9 years later, he got another one. It took time, but I think that story arc is important because it just kind of forms, I don't know. I think people like to see kind of the rise, the fall, and the rise again. All we've seen is a rise of Mahomes. That's all we've seen. I would like, and not wishing ill on him, but I hope that some other folks kind of get in there and win over the next few years. And then maybe he kind of surges down the road.
That story arc, that's a great point. That actually would serve him best in the long term. If his card values, if he he's obviously clearly on the rise now. If he actually falls off for a couple of years, as you said, Brady's an excellent example, right? Brady had the early career unbelievable success, but then the Patriots couldn't figure it out for a little while. Like they were always good, like they were always winning their division, but they had some years where they weren't getting over the hump, and you saw guys like Peyton Manning, for example, take down a couple of Super Bowls during that stretch and that type of thing. But then Brady rose again later in his career, and then had some great wins later in his career as well. That same type of thing could absolutely happen to Patrick Mahomes, and it's that kind of that dip period in the middle where I think your sweet spot's going to be. You said something in your video the other day. You said you wondered if Mahomes now doing this, the 3rd Super Bowl at the age he's done it at, will actually start to tarnish Tom Brady's cards a little bit, maybe cause Tom Brady's market to dip somewhat, because maybe there are some people out there who now worry that Mahomes will catch Brady and Mahomes will go down as the greatest quarterback of all time. His stats likely will be better than Brady's stats by the end of his career. I don't know if he's going to get 7 rings or not. He may not, but he probably will have more passing yards and that type of thing. Maybe, I don't know. Brady played well into his 40s, so it's a big question mark whether Mahomes is going to be able to do that or not. But Mahomes has the benefit of the 17 games. Brady only had 16 games, and Mahomes is just better earlier numbers than Brady in terms of passing yards and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see where that goes. But I personally hope what you describe could happen happens. I hope that people move off their Brady cards and move into Mahomes cards, because if we see Brady's cards fall another 50% over the next year or something of that nature, I will be buying Brady cards all day long if that is to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm in the same boat. I mean, that's the guy that I have the most cards of outside of my Drew Brees. As a Saints fan, I've got a lot of Brees stuff, but monetarily and really kind of the most slabs, it's all in Tom Brady, and I'm happy to double and triple down if that is the case. It's kind of unique too, because Brady, it's not like Brady is like a Bill Russell. It's not like he played 40, 50 years ago to where you could say, oh, it's a different game now. It's, they played in the same era. Brady beat him one-on-one in the Super Bowl. They've played each other. So it's a different dynamic than trying to compare kind of like a GOAT going back in time, to a current player. Even with Jordan and LeBron, they almost crossed over, but not quite. Jordan was wrapping up as Jordan was getting, as LeBron was getting going. So it's a unique circumstance, but I do think at the end of the day, football cards as a whole are going to all kind of roll up to these two guys. It's clear now that Mahomes with 3 rings and people have made a good point, though. He might never go back. Like, this might be it. You never know. And his playing style is interesting, too. He's a mobile quarterback, and he takes hits. Tom Brady and Brees, part of why they played till their early 40s, mid 40s for Brady, they're pocket passers that just get the ball out in 2.9 seconds. Mahomes is scrambling around. He's running. He's getting hit. He's 28. Can he do that at 35? Can he do that at 40? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you can play 20 plus years with that sort of style. Now, maybe he morphs his game as he ages up and he just figures out he's going to sit in the pocket and just get it out quickly. That could be what happens, but it'll be interesting to see for sure.
It will be, and his game is very much, as you said, that kind of exciting run-around game. I don't know what Mahomes is just a true pocket passer looks like. I don't know how exciting that is. It feels like the excitement that he brings to the game is that ability at any moment to scramble and pull off some type of, miraculous play. I mean, that's kind of what he does. Yeah, you're right. I mean, people sleep on the fact that Brady played for so long. What did he play till 45 years old, I think, which is just absolutely unheard of. I mean, like, you're a big Drew Brees fan, which, by the way, one of the more underrated, quarterbacks in terms of football card value, in my opinion. I love, Drew Brees, just total stand-up guy, great for the community, absolutely incredible numbers, won the Super Bowl. Great story there coming off of Katrina. I mean, there's so many good things about Drew Brees, and his cards are not as respected as they should be. I know you're doing your part to bring more attention to that, but he couldn't play anywhere close to, where Brady was in terms of career longevity. Peyton Manning obviously couldn't get there. And no quarterback can get to where Brady got. So to think Mahomes is somehow going to last that long is quite unlikely. And so you may have a lot shorter. I mean, it may be a lot harder for Mahomes to get to 7 than people think, just because his career window may not be. I mean, he may only have, if he plays till 38, which is realistic for most quarterbacks, if he plays till 30, and most great quarterbacks, I mean, there's plenty of quarterbacks that don't make it anywhere close to 38, but like for a great quarterback, 38, maybe 40 is pretty much where you're going to tap out if your name's not Tom Brady. So he's got 10 to 12 years left. He's got to get 4 rings in 10 to 12 years to tie Brady. I don't really see that happening. And, who knows, maybe this will look like a silly statement, down the road, but I don't really see that happening. I believe that if you went back and reran this same season again, this same postseason again, if you put all the teams back on the field again, and you said, play the playoffs again, just restart them from the beginning and play the playoffs again, I think the Chiefs maybe only win 1 of the 10 times. I really do. Maybe 2 of the 10 times. I think that in most of the scenarios, I think you got scenarios where the Bills beat them. I think you got scenarios where the Ravens beat them. And I think you certainly have scenarios where they lose to the 49ers in the championship game. I mean, they really got outplayed by the 49ers in a lot of that championship game. People forget that, the offense, Mahomes' offense was not prolific for most of the game against Baltimore, and then for most of the game against the 49ers. It was only the last 4 drives where they got things going, and it took a muffed punt for them to put their first touchdown up and for them to even be in the position at the end of the game. I mean, it took a lot of things to break in their favor. The special teams plays, the blocked extra point, a lot of things had to break in their favor. I think if you go back and rerun the postseason, they only win 1 or 2 titles, and out of 10, which means that the chances of them repeating next year, when Kelsey's a year older, and he's getting on up there now, and they still are lacking the star power on the wide receiver. They had guys step up in the postseason, for sure, play better than they did during the regular season. But, man, I still felt like they were kind of teetering on the edge the whole postseason. It was great they got it done, but do I have confidence that they're going to get it done again next year and the year after? I don't. There's a lot of good competition in the league. And, people are going to say I'm nuts because because now Mahomes, no one can beat Mahomes when it matters. I think that's recency bias. I think that's people looking at what happened earlier this week. I think the reality is the Chiefs give me the field next year against the Chiefs and I'll take the field, and give me the field the year after and I'll take the field again. And then let me go buy my Mahomes cards then, 2 years from now. I think that's probably how things, mathematically, Vegas would tell you as well. This is how things are most likely to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. The real MVP for the Chiefs this year was their defense, completely underrated. I mean, if you look at, it's always Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes that get all the glory, but this year, if you look at Patrick Mahomes' numbers, they were pretty pedestrian compared to what he usually does. But the Chiefs defense, especially in the Super Bowl, just watching Purdy throwing, those 49ers route runners are great, and just watching them lock down on the receivers. And I've been saying it the entire postseason. I don't understand why Christian McCaffrey didn't. They should have gone old school Earl Campbell and just ran him 35 times. Emmitt Smith, style where they just ran the ball and kept Mahomes off the field. And to give them credit, I mean, you look at the 49ers defense, they really, as you said, they really contained that Chiefs offense, didn't do much for 3 quarters, which is unheard of. But they just didn't, I felt like they were just getting a little bit too, throw happy, and really should have stuck with McCaffrey a little bit more, or even the other running back they've got. That second running back the 49ers have is great too. So I don't understand why they weren't a little bit more patient, because you're throwing into the strength of their defense. Their secondary is just so good, but it is what it is. And the Ravens did the same thing. You see Lamar Jackson trying to throw downfield, and I'm just like, why? This is the number one rushing team by far in the NFL. You should just be running it down their throat. That's their only weakness. But I'm not an NFL coach. I'm sure there's probably a lot more to it.
There were definitely interesting decisions made for sure. I'm sure in retrospect, teams would play things out a lot differently. But and it's actually a shame that defensive players' cards don't get more attention or more love in the sports card hobby, because you're right. It was both San Francisco's defense as well as Kansas City's defense that really, starred in that game. Chris Jones was, he had some pivotal plays to break up, certain Brock Purdy passes to pressure Brock Purdy in key situations in that game. And but their cards never get any love or attention, which is a little bit of a shame. But I am interested, Dustin, in talking to you about another type of card, because you told me recently that for the first time, you've started buying some Bowman U first prospect quarterback cards, guys who might come around in this year's NFL draft. And I think this is really interesting. And I've talked about it on the show before. Topps really seems to be making a very intentional push into trying to build up Bowman Chrome U, and the first prospect cards in football the same way that prospect cards have a massive following in baseball. And I think it right now is quite successful. I had Ryan Johnson, Card Collector 2. I did a episode with him a few months ago on the Jeff Wilson Show, and he said that Bowman U cards were the number one selling cards in his card shop. Now, granted, he's in Columbus, Ohio, so he's near the University of Ohio State University, right? So there's that connection with the university. But there's a lot of, shops around the country that are near major universities. Here in Atlanta at Cards HQ, the University of Georgia's an hour drive away or so. And we sell a ton of Bowman U football. It's been a hot seller for us ever since we've opened up this card store. You've been buying Bowman U cards, taking a chance for it for the first time. Why are you doing that? Who are you buying, and where do you kind of see all of this going?
I thought it was just kind of a fun play. I'm brand new to it. I just kind of learned of it over the last month or two, and listening to guys like you said, Ryan Card Collector 2, I did hear him say that and kind of brushed it aside, like, okay, well, he's close to a huge university, Ohio State. It makes sense. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr. coming out. Obviously, a lot of excitement, around him where he is. But then I started to look into it more, and I was like, you know what? This is kind of a fun play where you can get autographs for guys like Drake May, as an example. I'm here in Raleigh. My wife went to UNC. He's the UNC QB, and he's supposed to be a top 5 pick. And I'm a big football guy, so I'm paying attention to the mock drafts and that sort of thing. And so I just thought, this could be a fun spec play that's very short term, to where I kind of have a sell date or a kind of an area of when I want to sell around the draft or maybe leading up to the season. And it's a little bit different than trying to choose the NFL quarterback that's already established that might bounce back or that might start next year, because it's very tricky. Look, let's face it, in the NFL, we've got 32 franchises. Most of them have a good starting quarterback or a guy that can, that can play in the league. It's different when, 20, 30 years ago, you might have had 7 to 10 teams that had a franchise quarterback and the other ones were kind of bumbling along. Now, with such, huge importance put on the QB position, there's probably going to be 5 QBs in this year's first round draft, in the first round of this year's draft alone, from teams that are just reaching, trying to find that next Mahomes, trying to find the next Burrow or whoever, and so I think that's kind of a fun, kind of a speculation play compared to just trying to buy, like, okay, is Burrow going to come back and have a great season? Is so-and-so going to have a great season? Jared Goff, is he going to continue on? It's tough. It's almost like you're throwing money at horses. It can be very tricky to figure out what's what, especially when, cards are already fairly expensive. I bought 20 Drake May autographs that were Bowman products or Leaf products that were around $100 each, $125. So it's not a huge money play. I can get them graded, or I can keep them raw and then see what happens. So for me, it's like I could buy it for $100, maybe I sell it for $150, and that's great. And it was fun. It's almost kind of like fantasy football, where you play fantasy football. It's an extension of your NFL experience, and that's what this is for me. I'm going to give it a shot.
I think it's a really smart play. I think for a few different reasons. I mean, first of all, if you had done this exact thing with C.J. Stroud a year ago, you would be in incredible position. And even with the quarterbacks who didn't pan out as well this year, there's still a lot of value in their cards because they're only a year into the league. People aren't jumping ship on them now. Even if they, even a guy like Bryce Young, obviously, who was a bit disappointing this season, didn't maybe pan out the way that people were hoping, especially compared to C.J. Stroud, or Will Levis had some moments. But even guys like that who aren't at C.J. Stroud's level, there's still going to be a lot of interest around their Bowman U cards going into year two. Now, if they have a bad year two, then maybe the hype is going to die down for year three. But I think, you've got multiple opportunities to move their cards over their first, 2 years in the league. If you want to get out of them and sell them and often, flip them for a profit. I think that's really interesting. The other dynamic that's interesting as well is some of these players are now signing these exclusive autograph deals. I don't know, for example, Drake May, I don't know if he's Fanatics exclusive or if he's going to sign Panini cards as well. I don't know. But, it's possible that he's Fanatics exclusive or that he's going to be Fanatics exclusive. CJ Stroud is, right? So we're already seeing that happen with Stroud. Stroud's autographs from Topps products, from Bowman U and from some, now the new Topps Now thing they're doing and everything like that. His autographs have done really, really well, and in part because there's such a limited supply. You can't pull a CJ Stroud auto out of Prism this year, but because he doesn't have the Panini license. Panini doesn't have the license, but people want a CJ Stroud auto. So that, greatly cuts down on the number of CJ Stroud autos that are on the market. And, and this is true for this next couple of years while we're in this weird situation right now with Panini and Topps and the exclusive licenses. And who knows how this stuff will all play out. It may be completely different a year or two from now. But at the moment, we're in this weird position. So it's possible that Drake maybe he doesn't end up in Panini products. Maybe he does. I don't know. Some people out there may know what his autograph signing deal is. But if you're in a situation where Drake May next season has a really good rookie year, is showing promise, and there's not that many autographs of his out on the market because of whatever type of exclusive deals, those cards you just bought for $100, those are probably going to be worth a heck of a lot more. I mean, multiples of the $100 that you paid on a per card basis. So I like it. And I think that, as you said, football cards have been on this incredible rise in the sports card hobby over the last couple of years. I think that has been fueled in part because we've had some really good young quarterback play. We've had good quarterback draft classes. I mean, you go back and look at 2020 with the incredible Burrow and Tua and Hurts, and now Jordan Love, who's emerging. 2021, you still got Justin Fields. You still got Trevor Lawrence, even though some of the other guys didn't pan out quite as much. 22, you had maybe a little bit of a down year in retrospect. I think that was the Kenny Pickett year, that type of thing. But you got Brock Purdy that came out of 22. And so he ended up really lifting 22 up kind of unexpectedly as Mr. Irrelevant there. But yeah, I mean, you got this year, you've got the possibility of having all these first rounders. 2023, of course, you now have had CJ Stroud already emerge as one of the greatest rookie quarterbacks of all time. 2024, you're going to have all of these first-round quarterbacks that are going to go again, much like the 2021 year. So, it's exciting. It's drawing a lot of people to football cards, and I think a lot of speculation on those young quarterbacks means very good things for Bowman U cards down the road.
It's exciting. It adds another element that, it was sort of there before, but as you said, there's enough of a runway before the pro, jersey cards come out. And then, of course, you got some guys, like you mentioned, like a CJ Stroud, that's not going to have a Panini. There's not going to be a National Treasures auto for him. there's not going to be a flawless auto for him. So it does add kind of a wrinkle there that I think is fun. And again, like you've got kind of, I'm not saying I'm holding the college unis for years or anything, but it does give you kind of maybe a 12-month window to play around with.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be weird this year to see, National Treasures and Flawless be opened and not see CJ Stroud autos and not see Bryce Young autos. I don't quite know what Panini's going to do. I'm curious to see if they try to do some real special things with certain cards of those guys to somehow still make them very desirable. But they've been through this in the past. I mean, they didn't have, for example, Ben Simmons didn't have any autos and National Treasures when he was a basketball rookie. Of course, today, not that many people care about Ben Simmons cards, but back when he was a rookie, he was the number 1 draft pick. He was the guy. People were really excited about his cards, and yet he didn't have any autos, didn't have RPAs or anything like that. So, I mean, the hobby has been through it before, but it feels this year like that's going to be a particular letdown, especially with how well CJ Stroud played. At least with a product like Prism, you've got color blasts, to help pull those up, right? Like people are still, and you got all the black 101s and all that kind of stuff. But for National Treasures and Flawless, it feels like it's going to be a little tougher to not have CJ Stroud autos in there and not have Bryce Young autos and true RPAs for those guys. I don't know. How do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, I mean, the meat of that product, if you look at the cost, why are you paying huge money for Flawless National Treasures? It's because it's on-card autos. I mean, it's a cool patch with an on-card auto. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious, as you said, how are they going to price that up? Because I just can't imagine the demand is going to be the same as we saw in years past. I'm not sure how they're going to properly do it. But, that we saw, too, with one thing I wanted to throw in as well, kind of, again, going back to the Bowman U stuff, even with C.J. Stroud having this breakout season, they go to the playoffs, he's exceeding expectations. It's not as if Topps threw out, a bunch of Topps Now every week. It's not as if they had a zillion autos go out on Stroud. I mean, if you look, he's got some of the stuff, of course, but I mean, most of the stuff that's selling big, it's still the Ohio State jersey, type stuff. It's very... it's kind of all the same thing. So and again, that it's probably not going to be that way a year, 2 years down the road. It'll most likely get sorted out. But yeah, we are in this transitory time where, it's fun. But yeah, to answer your question, it's going to be weird with Flawless and NT and some of these high profile, big dollar, products. I just don't see how they pull it off the same way.
It's going to be a little harder for the breakers to build that same level of excitement, but who knows? I don't know. People are crazy about football cards right now, and people are going to want to chase these guys regardless, but it is going to be interesting to watch for sure. All right, Dustin, before we wrap up today, I want to talk a little bit about, you were obviously down here in Atlanta a few weeks ago. You talked about this on your Sports Card Dad channel quite a bit, but you set up for the first time as a dealer at the Culture Collision show. I know you had the dealer experience. You got to come by Cards HQ. I gave you a tour around here as well. What are your takeaways from being a dealer, and for somebody out there who maybe hasn't set up as a dealer at a card show before and maybe is thinking about doing it at a card show in the future, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so this experience was kind of unique for me because I mostly brought Stranger Things cards, which are very niche, obviously, in the pop culture entertainment card space. And then I also did bring sports cards, but we're talking like 80%, non-sports entertainment cards, Stranger Things stuff, and then 20% sports. And I did sell some sports cards while I was there. The one thing I guess that makes it tricky as far as kind of what I would tell people is I basically brought my collection down to see what the feedback would be on very niche stuff. So I wasn't coming in thinking, okay, I need to come in and sell X amount, and I wasn't strategically buying to bring certain cards to the show. And I think that that's important. If I look around, I have a fairly good idea of what people want as far as quarterbacks or baseball prospects or those sorts of things. If I was coming in as running it as a business, this was kind of more of a fun, trip where I was just kind of doing an experiment. But if I was really coming in to sell cards, be paying a lot more attention to kind of the cards that are selling and what people want, maybe in the Atlanta area as well, focusing in on certain players there. But There was certain cards that I know that I could have sold very easily there, but they're just part of my collection that I don't want to sell. So that was kind of, and then you're getting into the whole like collector versus dealer part of it, where, there's a lot of cards you don't necessarily want to sell. And so you're just trying to pick and choose. I think if you're setting up as a dealer, are you a reseller? Are you a serious reseller and it's something that you want to make a business out of? Or is it, more of, you are actually a collector and maybe you've got some extra inventory that you're trying to move off of and you've got to kind of figure out what that is. For me, I'm in a unique position because I'm also a content creator. So it's a networking event for me. I get to, also come down and see the Cards HQ shop. There was 10 different reasons for me to come to the show, outside of just selling cards. So I was able to sell cards and I felt like that part was a success. But, if you look at the dollars and cents of my hotel versus my travel versus the cards I sold, I was out some money. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but if I'm looking at the big picture of it, the connections I made, the networking part, the content I was able to create, it was a win for me.
Yeah. I'm always impressed with dealers who make their living at card shows because people forget about, all the expenses that are involved. It's as you said, you got to buy the table and then you've got to pay for the hotel, pay for the flights. Now, I think you drove down, so you didn't have to worry about a flight. But, if you were going out to the Dallas Card Show, for example, and trying to set up there, you'd be paying for flights, you'd be paying for hotels, you'd be paying for, your table fee, food, all that kind of stuff. It's not a cheap endeavor to go set up at a card show. So then you got to be able to make your margin back. You got to pay all those expenses over the course of the weekend through the margin you're making on the cards, plus then still make enough margin on top of that to actually be able to, put some money in your pocket to make the profit, to make the whole thing worthwhile. That's actually somewhat of a tough endeavor to be able to do.
Yeah, and I do wonder, and to be honest, I do wonder in today's market, just because it is more of a buyer's market, I would say, for the most part, how many of the dealers are really out there doing well, and then how many of them are maybe just kind of, doing okay and getting by, but understanding like we're not in a strong market for a lot of cards. But, maybe dealers are just getting kind of, they're getting creative and they're understanding, that they need to build relationships with customers and have repeat customers. That's the thing. I think if you're a dealer at a show and you're counting on always new customers and new customers and new customers, you've got to figure out how to build relationships with people that buy cards from you and just kind of hope that they come back, kind of build that up to where they come back to you for specific cards. I think that's really key. Or if they want to sell collections, sell cards. I know that's got to be, I'm sure, a big part of what Cards HQ is, you're building a community there where people, they're buying, they're selling, they're trading to, from you and then back to the store and to others that are there. And it's all kind of this symbiotic relationship that works together. And I think in today's world as a dealer, I'm certain that the people that are successful are doing that.
Yeah, and I think you got to do it in a pretty high volume. I mean, that's our model, obviously, at Cards HQ is, quick turnover of inventory, high volume buying and selling. But it's challenging to do that. It's not an easy task, especially if you're out there on your own as a dealer, trying to make things happen at card shows. So it's not the easiest way to make money, but for the people who do it and who dedicate themselves to it, and obviously a lot of them have a passion for it, it's always impressive to see. All right, Dustin, let me get you out of here on this. Sports Card Dad, your channel, you're continuing to post good content all over the world of sports cards and sometimes non-sports cards every day. What is next for what you're doing with your Sports Card Dad channel?
I'm just really enjoying the ride, to be honest. I mean, I've mentioned before, I'm not a creative person, so this is my creative outlet. It's kind of an extension of what I'm doing in the hobby, and it's just fun to be able to kind of express yourself about hobby topics and different products, different sets, different cards, and have done it long enough now. I'm 4 years in, I'm just about 4 years into it, to where I've got some sort of audience, viewers that also interact with you. So it's kind of a built-in family that has just been a lot of fun. So I think it's just doing more of the same, and just doing more of the networking type stuff. I just really enjoy the hobby, but I also enjoy the industry side as well. So just going to continue on. It's been a great ride so far.
Yeah, good. Well, we look forward to the continuing content. You always do a great job of getting stuff out timely. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I enjoy your perspectives. I appreciate Appreciate you joining the show again, Dustin, and we'll look forward to having you on again soon.
Thanks, Geoff. I appreciate it.
And a reminder to you that you can see the full episodes of all Geoff Wilson shows on YouTube by searching for The Geoff Wilson Show, as well as on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you're subscribed everywhere so you can listen to The Geoff Wilson Show on the go. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you with the next one. Take care.